Budgeting for takeoff. The Moneycontrol team presents the Moneycontrol Manifesto 24-25. India is projected to grow at 6.3 to 6.5% until 2026, according to the World Bank. If you place this against India's recent growth history, this might appear a little modest. But if you compare this with other major economies of the world, India clearly is galloping at a very fast rate. But the challenge for the government and the policymakers is to sustain this growth rate for long periods of time. More importantly, how does India remain attractive for foreign and domestic investors for a long period of time? These require immediate, urgent, and pointed policy interventions, both for short-term, medium-term, and long-term benefits. The Moneycontrol Manifesto, put together by Moneycontrol editors, is an attempt to contribute to India's public policy discourse through a matrix of suggestions, particularly with policy prescriptions that warrant immediate government and policy attention. The income tax. The new income tax regime that was introduced a few years ago was an attempt by the government to simplify the tax systems, particularly the individual income tax systems and processes. The new income tax regime coexists with the old income tax regime. Last year, the government raised the exemption limits as also the standard deduction, which effectively meant that income until rupees 7 lakh got a rebate on individual taxes. There is a case to take a relook at it, because until you make the new income tax regime more attractive, or said oppositely, unless you make the old income tax regime a kind of a disincentive for people to opt for, it will never take off. Probably the interim budget is an occasion to take a relook at the new income tax regime to make it more attractive to a new class of income tax payers that are joining the pipeline of working class professionals, so that more and more people opt for the new income tax regime. A good way of doing that is to raise the exemption limit and make it more and more attractive. Capital gains tax. This has been a long-standing debate in India's budget making. Every time a budget is presented, capital gains features as a dominant subject for discussion. Capital gains conceptually is levied on immovable assets, essentially on the rise in the value of movable and immovable assets that people hold. The problem, however, is different tax rates, that is, different capital gains tax rates, are levied on different classes of assets. Say, for instance, capital gains on real estate will attract a different rate and a different system. Capital gains on mutual funds will attract a different rate and a different tenure. Likewise, for other financial and physical assets. I think it is about time to standardize capital gains tax rates and slabs in India across all assets classes. There cannot be a better way than the interim budget for 2024 to address this. Securities transaction tax. There is a case for complete elimination of the securities transaction tax, or at least lowering it in the cash segment. It was introduced in 2004. There is a case of double taxation that has crept into the system. The companies that earn profits are already paying tax on it. The government earns dividend tax from the shareholders that are receiving dividends from companies. Clearly, the securities transaction tax is due for an overhaul. Let the interim budget be the occasion to do this. Government finances. If you look at the past budgets of this government, it has clearly demonstrated its intent to walk the talk on fiscal deficit. There is a medium-term target of bringing down the fiscal deficit to 4.5% of GDP by 25-26. This goal should not be compromised on at any cost, even if it's the interim budget, and which can actually lead the government to attract very populist measures. Even then, if it's a pre-election budget, there is no case for wavering away from the glide path of a 4.5% fiscal deficit by 25-26. PM Kisan. The PM Kisan scheme that was launched in the interim budget of 2019 is a clear standout welfare scheme of this government in the current term. Under the scheme, Rs 6,000 is given out to eligible farmers over a one-year period. It's a good scheme because it gives money directly to eligible farmers. But 5 years hence, given the inflation levels and rising cost of living, there is a case for a serious appraisal of this scheme. We believe that the government and the finance minister should announce a higher payout of the PM Kisan scheme in the interim budget from the existing Rs 6,000. The budget 24-25 and the government should make it very clear in the interim budget itself that the focus on capital expenditure will continue. In the last budget, Rs 13.7 lakh crore was set aside for capital expenditure, the highest ever in India's budget history, which also includes, by the way, Rs 1.3 lakh crore for state support. The states have welcomed this move. But supports to state should come on a merit-based condition. That is, states should also support the capital expenditure initiative of the central government so that the economic multipliers of capital expenditure and spending on assets such as infrastructure actually reaches its full potential across all states. The Moneycontrol Manifesto is an attempt to contribute to India's public policy discourse. It has been put together by Moneycontrol's editors and experts. It contains a matrix of suggestions that Moneycontrol editors and experts believe should receive pointed attention of the government and policymakers. Keep an eye out on what Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is likely to speak on February 1, 2024 when she presents the interim budget for 2024-25. You will find more details of this across Moneycontrol, across various verticals, which involves deep coverage of the union budget and much more.